Hey, my name's Luke again. Good to meet you guys. If I haven't met you, I'd love to meet you out in the lobby. Just come and introduce yourself. It's always good to make connections, and part of the coming in person piece is just being able to put names with faces and look you in the eye and meet you. So I really just want to emphasize, I got a short talk this morning before lunch, and really want to emphasize like what we've talked about already today. I'm really stoked that today has already been a lot about teams, and so I'm going to dive even deeper into some of that, but also trying to just emphasize what we've already been talking about. I'd love to do just a quick case study on myself, and I just want to caveat the whole thing with I want none of this to come across, for those of you who know me or have worked with me, I really want none of this to come across as something that I have like reached into a bucket and figured out the secret sauce or like nailed, the nail on the head with the right way to do things. I just want to share my experience because I think it's a little bit unique. I think there's some things I picked up over the past year in this unique role at Storyline, and I think that there's some affirmation as I've kind of given this information to accelerator students over the years, and they've applied it and seen results that I think could probably come alongside you in your role. So hopefully you understand my heart in this. This is not Luke knows what he's doing and is the best at recruiting and building, but that Luke's just sharing his experience, and hopefully you guys can pick up some nuggets of wisdom. So I'll go through this kind of introduction. This is my family. This is our Ruby girl in my arms. This is my wife, Lauren, of 8 years, and Noah, who's a year and a half. So Ruby is 4, Noah's a year and a half. Lauren's birthday is today, and so she's being very gracious, letting me. She's in the back. She just sat down. And Lauren, she also runs a company called Kids Ministry Circle. So if you want to check out that channel, podcast, great ministry resources for kids ministry leaders. My circumstances coming into Storyline is a church about 45 minutes northwest in Arvada, Colorado, from this point here. Storyline Church is about 7 years old. They just celebrated their 7th birthday. It's a church plant that came out of, it was kind of networked with NAM, North American Mission Board, and the SBC, and it's kind of planted as far west as you can go in the Arvada neighborhood before you hit the mountains. So it's just kind of, there's not really a whole lot around in that area. We always joke that there's literally no good places to eat besides Qdoba, which is saying a lot. And so you've got Qdoba and Wendy's in West Arvada. Those are the two spots. So they planted from Florida and Tennessee, like a combination of people in Florida and Tennessee planted, moved out here. They kind of toured the land and walked together with about 100 people, all moved their families over to Colorado, planted the church. So they had a good kind of upbringing and good kind of momentum as they planted. So there was a little bit of that inertia and momentum going there. And then before I came on board, there were 3 tech directors. So if you think about a church plant, it's 7 years old now. So in the past 4 years, I guess in the first 4 years of its existence, it experienced 3 tech directors. So that shows you a little bit of the turnover, and none of the tech directors were bad. And I want to be very gracious and very clear with my words that I think we can appreciate all the people who came before us in a certain way, and I never want to dog on anybody for what they did. But they all had very niche skills. So one of the guys, the first guy, who commissioned the space, he really was really passionate about being a video director. So he was really good at wireless shading and camera switching and programming crazy lights, and all really, really done with excellence. And then the second guy was really passionate about kind of more the social media communications video aspect, like shooting bumper videos, shooting talking head videos, and incorporating that element of video into the services. So, and then there was an interim before me who really just kind of held down the fort. And you guys know what an interim is. I don't need to explain it. So they were before me. I came in June of 2021, started there, and this is what I kind of inherited. My team is, I'm talking June of 2021, it's not currently, but it was 6 people serving every single week. Like there was, every single week, and if you can look at the next, bullets, we needed 5 every single week. We needed a front of house audio engineer, a CG ops, which is lyrics, lighting ops, camera ops, and a video director. So if you have 6 people on your team and they're serving every single week, it doesn't leave a lot of margin. Like you guys can already see that, you can hear it, and I'm sure that a lot of you resonate with that in your teams. Like you've got a good core, and man, if one of them is out, it's like tough. You feel it in your gut. So As I interviewed for this role and kind of talked to leadership, here's what I did know about myself. And this is just kind of stuff that I pursue self-awareness. I think self-awareness is key in your leadership role. So I'm self-aware enough to know that I am a hard worker. I will overcommit. I'm borderline workaholic, and Lord be gracious with me. I'm a self-starter, so I'll pick stuff up just because I want to, and just because I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to be better, I want to, increase the tools in my tool belt. I love to learn. I really love the experience of gaining new skills, gaining new insights at things. And I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, and so that means I become obsessive so that I can get results and show people that I can prove that I'm worth what I'm putting my time into. So those are just some things that, okay, thank you. I'm self-taught on almost everything tech. I took over a job that Jake had transitioned out of as a music teacher at a private Christian school, who also, if you've ever been a music teacher at a school, you know that you're also the tech director, the theater director, the IT person. So I sat behind an X32 for the first time, was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to use it. I've never run sound in my entire life, and just figured it out. And that was before YouTube and the X32 world kind of took off. But self-taught, I knew that. I'd never been a TD or a production manager before, so I had no experience coming into this in this role. But I understood big picture stuff. I understood how to build teams. I had planted a church with a friend of mine here in Littleton before, and we had planted a church for about 5 years that ended up growing from 0 to 500 in those 5 years, and I was overseeing a team of about 40 to 60 volunteers in that time. So I kind of got the big picture stuff. I understood building teams and relationship and pastoral ministry. Didn't really care about the tech director stuff. So again, all case study. I'm just sharing that all to kind of give you some context for where I'm coming from. I just want to talk about 2 kind of words that maybe they're going to be metaphors that break down at some level, so bear with me, be gracious. Metaphors always have some level where they just, I don't know, they don't work. But the first one that I want to reference is the recipe. So in November, my heart starts to go to pie. I don't know if you guys like pie, but I love pie. I think that in heaven I will just eat all pies. I've only met one pie I did not like, and it's key lime. I'm not saying that it's out of the question. I'm not saying it's out of the question. I'm just saying my palate still has to develop, because I know that if I give it enough time, I will like it. It's a pie, so I will like it. I just love all pies. But if you think about a pie and you think about the recipe, recipes are really specific, right? And I know we probably all have that recipe that is in our family that we really, really appreciate and has really specific ingredients or pieces or measurements. But I think about a pie come November, and I'm like, man, to make the crust and to make the filling and to get it to come out of the oven looking as gorgeous as this mixed berry pie does, it's just making me hungry and yearn right now thinking about it. But to do all that, you have to follow a good recipe, because if you don't, you're gonna be missing salt, you're gonna be missing sugar and sweetness, you're missing consistency in dough and crust. And so you think about a recipe, and so that led me to kind of think about the recipe for growing your team. And I think every church should have, and I don't often say should, but I'm going to now, I think every church should have certain components to their recruiting and growth recipe for their volunteers. So the things that I think are pretty crucial are that you have a serve page on your website somewhere. It doesn't need to be the front page, but it's got to be somewhere for all of your people to see the places that they can serve and use their gifts. Because I believe that, what the Bible says, that God has equipped everybody in our church to be a contributing member of the body of Christ. Hand, foot, eyes, mouth, ears. You have a gift. Your people have a gift. And so they need to know how to be a contributing member to the body. And so if they don't know how to be a contributing member of the body, then you're going to be you're going to be stagnant. Your team isn't going to grow. But if you give them information, a place to find that out, then I think you do have more potential there. So a serve page on your church's website, a simple form to capture interest and information, phone number, email, what's your background, what's your experience like. That could be a number of different, everybody's got a church management system, and you can even use Google Forms to do this. This is really not complex to set up, and it doesn't cost anything. So simple form to capture information. I also think a good quarterly email push or opportunity is what I would like to call it is helpful. In my case study at Storyline, we send out what's called, get ready for the original, like cool church stuff, the Storyline After Story. Okay, so it's the weekly email that goes out as the after story. In the after story, I think once a quarter, we send out it's a spot for people to get involved. So it's asking the question, do you want to get involved? Do you want to serve? Do you want to become a member of a team? And then we put a couple different roles in there that are the highest need or kind of the most, we're focusing most on them. So everybody knows almost every after story, kids is in there because everybody always needs kids volunteers. But every once in a while, I'll get the email from my boss, and she'll say, hey, what are the 2 top roles in your team that you have need for? It's going to be featured in the after story. Make sure that their job descriptions are updated, and make sure that their the description of the role is updated for the serve page on the website. So that's really where we create a quarterly opportunity for people to just kind of slow drip, see it consistently. It's not this big push of desperation up front. It's just over time consistently saying, hey, here's some opportunities for you to serve, for you to plug in, for you to use your gifts. These are a couple of the areas that our churches is looking to grow in building up these teams. And then the last piece of the recipe that I think is super crucial is clear onboarding expectations and steps. So a lot of times, I know you guys, and I mean myself included in the past, like when somebody comes and expresses interest to join your team, part of us can feel stuck. Like, what do we do next? If we haven't thought about it, if we don't have a consistent system that we've followed, that we've seen a proven track record with, we can feel kind of stuck. So what do? We invite them to attend a rehearsal for a couple weeks, or we'll schedule an audition, or if you're speaking in terms of production, you might have them shadow somebody. And then after that piece, I feel like a lot of our brains get stuck with what's next. And so I would recommend that you spend some time. I mean, I don't think this takes long. I don't think it's rocket science. I am not that smart to implement rocket science into my ministry. But I think if you sit down for 30 minutes and just jot down what you think a good onboarding process in your church is, I think that then you could hand that over to somebody pretty quickly, and it would streamline your process moving forward. So that's the crucial recipe. Here's where I find the MSG, right? The stuff that adds it, makes it ooh, yeah, it's not good for your church, but man, it can add a little flavor to your experience here. My accelerator students in the room, raise your hands again. If you're a part of the accelerator program, what's the one thing I tell you that can increase your team? Anybody know? It's 2 words. On a slide, what's it called? Rows and holes. Roles and holes. Man, I need to start saying it more. Roles and holes is a slide where you put all the roles that are available in your team and the number of holes that you have, or the number that you're looking to recruit for, on your pre and post loop of slides, okay? That takes 5 minutes to make in ProPresenter or Keynote, and you just add that to your slide rotation so that in person, as people walk in the door to your services, and online as people are watching your pre-post stream, they're seeing, hey, Storyline has they need 2 audio engineers. They need 3 CG lyric operators. They need 3 video directors. And they see the quantity, and then at the bottom of that slide is how to get plugged in. What are my next steps? Come see Luke at the tech booth after service. Email ljackson@storylinechurch.net. Whatever it might be, you have that slide forever and always rotating, showing people ways that they can get involved. Similar to your serve page. Not necessary, but definitely helpful and shows quick results. The other piece is interest nights. So this is helpful if you have maybe a regular rhythm of space that you can create for people to come and just learn more. You can do kind of a little informational meeting. I usually think once a quarter is healthy for this. Once a month feels like a lot to add to your plate. But once a quarter is super helpful just to kind of come and say, hey, this is what our ministry is about. You might have 2 people show up. And I think that's still a win and worth your time. Time invested in people will never return void, in my opinion. And then a website video. So we talk about this. We have a great example of this in one of our students. His name is Eric. He's in the accelerator program. he just recorded, he put his phone or a camera on a tripod, he kind of sat down and he just kind of welcomed somebody as if he was talking to them about joining the team. So he said, hey, my name is Eric, welcome to our church. I'm so glad you're checking out our serve page to join the worship ministry. Here's a couple things you need to know about your onboarding process and the vision of the church. And he kind of described like 3 bullet points. The video is less than 2 minutes long, but I think it just streamlines that whole process for somebody who's interested, and they connect a name with the face by watching a video. And you guys know because you're at a conference from a YouTuber, so you know what it feels like to kind of know somebody online. That's the same way somebody's going to feel watching a video of you talk about your ministry. And as long as you have thought about your ministry, dialogued, and kind of at least written down the key points of your vision and mission at your church, and you can kind of clearly articulate that and why your ministry specifically supports that vision and mission, then I think a website video is really, really helpful. This does not need to be fancy. It just needs to be a talking head. It could be done with an iPhone or whatever smartphone you have available, and I think it just goes a long way. Last MSG additive, it can be social media. I know a lot of people who use social media. Jake visited a guy who's in Michigan at a church called 242 or 242. I'm going to get reamed for how it's described. It's one of those two, but it's 242 Church. And he, almost every single week, I see him post a picture with his team. His team after rehearsal is on the floor, and he does a selfie like this, and he only shows his eyes. Like, it's weird. It's a thing that he does. So his whole team is behind him for that week, but he only shows his eyes, and he's got a 242 hat on for, like, representing the church. And anybody who's following him is going to see one thing and one thing only from that social media post, is that he has team culture. Like, he has very strong team culture. He's got consistent teams. He takes a picture with them every week. He brags about them online. He thanks them, and it goes a long way. Now, I don't think you need to go above and beyond and become the next, like, TikTok viral sensation, but I think using social media in some way to kind of highlight your team can really be a good step. I just wouldn't try to really keep your priorities straight in that approach, because you can get very easily, distracted to what the main goal is. Highlight your team. Don't try to be Mr. Beast, okay? I want to talk about the method now, because you've got the recipe. Like, you've got the things that I think are helpful, and maybe I would say kind of like you should have. You've got the MSG ingredients. I want to talk about the method. So
before we continue on with the video, I want to tell you about our sponsor, the Churchfront Live Conference. It's a 2-day conference with keynotes and breakout sessions on topics like worship tech, worship theology, musicianship, and leadership. It is a great way to network with other like-minded ministry leaders in the Churchfront community. The sooner you purchase your Churchfront Live tickets, the greater the discount you will get with the early bird discount code. So head on over to churchfrontlive.com, use that early bird discount code at checkout, and I look forward to seeing you at the conference. Now let's get back to the video.
When we moved to Austin a couple of years back, we lived in Austin for almost 2 years. I didn't want to move with my gas grill. It had kind of decomposed into like this gross thing, and so I just like gave it away. I left it at the street when we moved out of the house. I was a bad previous owner there. But we moved to Austin, and I bought a big green egg. Anybody know what a big green egg is? It's just the best thing in the world to cook anything on. It's an indirect smoker, and so you can smoke meat on it low and slow, for long periods of time. You can also grill super hot and fast. So the method of cooking on the big green egg, you have to know your recipe and your ingredients that are going into something, and then you have to know your method. Am I going to put this thing at 225 for 6 to 8 hours and wrap it 6 hours in butcher paper, put it in a cooler wrapped in towels, and then bring it out and re-sear it and finish it with barbecue sauce on the ribs afterwards? Like, is that how I'm going to do it? Or am I going to do a reverse sear on a steak and, indirect cook it on a cast iron until it reaches perfect medium rare, and then sear it over really, really hot, like 800-degree fire? Like, what is the method I'm going to use? The other method that I've stumbled across that I really I don't have one. If any of you guys want to donate to my cause, I'd love it. This is called a sous vide. Anybody know what a sous vide is? I'm probably mispronouncing that too. Sous vide is this weird thing. I don't know where it came from or what why. Somebody decided to put meat in a bag and boil it in water so that it cooks perfectly and it's temperature regulated. And so you can leave it for, you can basically, again, cook it to the perfect internal temperature of whatever you're cooking, and then you can take it out and sear it, and it's incredible. If you've ever had sous vide meat, it's just stupid good. So you've got these options of the method, like low and slow, hot and fast, like all these different cooking methods, right, with the different ingredients that you come up with. I think that the method for you guys as leaders and for myself that I have seen work in churches is twofold. It's to show up, and that's the one method. Like, I think the show up method, it works, okay? So show up. Like, that's, if you lead with nothing else, just show up to what's going on in two areas, in your community and in your church. So I'm just going to breeze right through these, but in your community, this is super simple. I talked with Mike Brady. He's here somewhere, Accelerator student. Mike Brady, rural town. He's got something like 400 wineries. So there's like tons of stuff going on in terms of kind of business and agriculture, if you want to call it that, and the community. That's like what it is involved in, right? For us on Saturday mornings, it's Arvada soccer. So we've got a 4-year-old. What you do with 4-year-olds in soccer is you let them pretend that they're playing soccer, and you just let them kind of run and kick the balls around, and my daughter, she just falls and lays on the ground and cries. So it's just part of it. But at our Arvada soccer Saturdays, we just go and we meet people. I mean, almost all of our Arvada is at these soccer fields for this event. So, there's like 15, 16, 17 soccer fields laid out, and so then they split up all these toddlers and children, and it's crazy. But we show up. We get to meet people who are right down the road from our church, who are right down the road from our house. We have conversation. We meet parents, coaches, everybody who's kind of, in the world that we're in, and we get to chat with them, And for those of you who haven't tried this, like the coffee shop that you go to, just meet the people that work there. Like, get to know their names, get to know who they are, what they do, where they're from. Make a relationship. It's even if you're an introvert, guys, this is like not rocket science. Again, I'm not that smart. So be a part of your community by showing up to things. Now, I would say, like, if there are events in your community that are not your church events, but like concerts, fall festivals, parades, things like that, go to those. Meet people that you don't know, have conversation. And I would say walk into it without the intention of recruiting them, just get to know the people. And I think it goes a longer way if you're kind of genuine in that approach. The second way to show up is in your actual church. So again, go back to case study here. The case study at Storyline is that when I took over it in June of 2021, there was really no systems for anything. It was just kind of like people scrambling all the time. Whoever kind of had fingers could come back and adjust the soundboard and mute stuff or adjust stuff. And it was just a free-for-all for whatever made sense. Lights were awful. Streaming never worked. Like, sound was always crazy. And we probably have 5 to 6 events in the building on any given week. We have a Tuesday morning men's Bible study, a Wednesday adult discipleship learning environment, and student ministry meets on Wednesday. We have a Thursday morning women's Bible study and a Thursday evening women's Bible study. We also normally have some sort of a Friday or Saturday event of some either outside group or us putting on some sort of an event that we have to run. We have to have the systems and the tech leaders and the things to do those events. So I'm coming in and I'm like, I got to learn what is needed before I build the system, right? So I just kind of put my head to the ground and I say, I'm going to show up to it all, right? I do not advise showing up to it all, but I do advise showing up to a lot, at least in your initial season of learning and building these systems. Show up to as much as you can while protecting your boundaries. I do not do a great job of that, but again, I want to learn so I can make the systems, and I think I'll speak to that in a second. But I would show up to a 6 a.m. men's Bible study. I'd show up at 5:30 because you'd have to, turn on the board and turn on the lights and get the mic ready and fresh batteries and all the things. Then you'd go to student ministry and we call it the Storyline Institute on Wednesday nights. So I'd go and make sure all that stuff was good to go, run sound check with student ministry, run sound, help train up 13, 14-year-olds. And then I would go to women's Bible study on Thursday morning, and I would be there, and I'd just be kind of observing. What do they need? What are the things that they run into? What are the problems that they're having? What are the questions that the leaders have? But I'm there. I'm present. I think I've grown my team by at least 12 people In just showing up to men's Bible study, I've added 6 men to my team. And just by showing up to women's Bible study, I've at least added 4. And then in the Institute and students, I have 4 students serving with me, and Storyline Institute now is pretty fully functional without me. So there's a lot of growth that happened just by showing up and having conversation with the people that were involved in those ministries. They got to know me. I got to know them. I would have conversation with them, look them in the eye, shake their hands, like get to know their name, remember their name. And over time, like we just kept seeing, week after week, another guy would say, do you ever need any help in the production ministry? And like, who's going to say no, right? You just say yes, like absolutely. Let's talk about what it looks like to join our team. The other place I think you show up in your church is on a Sunday morning. We already talked about this. I love that Travis hit this so hard, is not being in your green room. Because again, I think I would venture to say 6 or 7 volunteers of mine have come just from me standing at the door to my tech booth, just standing there after service, lights are up. I'm like intentionally looking people in the eye as they leave our room, and I'm, reaching out my hand to shake their hand, saying, hey, have a great week. Great to be with you this morning. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. Hey, have a great week. Easy stuff. And every so often, the Lord drips in somebody who wants to pursue the production ministry and comes and just asks, like, hey, what does it look like? Are you guys looking to add to your team, or how do I get involved? I have sound. Like, I've had 3 guys come up to me and say, I have sound experience. How do I get involved in your team? And it's all from standing at the little door to the booth and just being there and looking at people, right? I think the temptation is like, well, let me go fix this thing. Let me go run over here. I got to adjust this before next service. I've just made the commitment to myself. If I can't fix it in less than 2 minutes, I'm just not going to do it in between services. It's just not worth it. I would much rather add to my team, unless it's a flaming fire that absolutely needs to be put out. We just don't have those very often. But like, I've made the commitment to just say, I have to be available for people. All this to say, I also do this without a name tag on. Like, I have a name tag. I don't know why it's in my jacket pocket, but I have a name tag. I don't wear this on Sundays. Like, I don't represent myself as a staff member or the go-to person in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just consistently there every single week, looking at my church people in the eyes, shaking their hands, greeting them, thanking them, welcoming them, saying hi, saying, how are your kids? What are you guys up to? Thanks for coming. Not hard stuff. Again, I am not as smart to like infiltrate a brand new system to like skyrocket your team. I just do things really consistently, and I think the primary thing that I'm good at is showing up. So I just show up, and now I know what each of those ministries need. I know what each of those ministries kind of require on a Sunday morning or weekend event, and it's by no means perfect. Like, I can't paint that picture of being perfect because that will never exist, but I love showing up to the Institute on Wednesday nights and knowing that the assistant that helps out with that knows how to record the Institute. She knows how to download the recording. She knows how to get the MP3 off of an SD card onto iMovie, rip the audio from it, send it to Google Classroom where we host all the audio, and I don't have to tell her a thing. Like, I built the system. I mapped out the training. I kind of, did the documentation, and now she does it. She doesn't ask questions. Like, she could always follow up if she wanted to, but it works. So I'll give you kind of a lay of the land of what I put in place. If you haven't checked out Zach Brown's YouTube channel, Zach Brown is not the country artist. Zach Brown is like a YouTuber who's a videographer. He built this Notion template for his production ministry. So if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and like YouTube search it. But Notion is kind of a glorified Word doc that you can embed a bunch of stuff into. It's very user customizable. It's free, so you guys can use it with no cost to you. And so this is what mine looks like. In my Storyline production one, I've got a front of house checklist, a pro presenter checklist. I can't read that third one, but I'm sure it's like media and video producer checklist, and then live streaming and things like that checklist. And all of those are just kind of pages or documents within Notion that any team member can show up on a Sunday morning, click on one of those. It's loaded onto all of our production computers, and you can do the iOS app, and they can just see exactly what they're going to need for the morning. Hey, I forgot how to do the MIDI triggers on Pro Presenter to cue the lights. Okay, I'm going to go to my Pro Presenter page, and there's a whole drop down, and there's a Loom video that shows you exactly how to do it with the step-by-step instructions included in that. I also built one for the Institute. You can see this is the discipleship room usage for how to turn on and off lights. Using the wall panels, we use QSYS wall panels, and so you can customize those to do whatever you want, but kind of what buttons do what, and then recording the event. So all these are drop downs. I couldn't put this in Keynote in that same way, but I'm happy to show anybody who wants it. And then our student ministry, same thing: audio, lighting, CG, video, and recording and things like that. So I just kind of made these pages for these ministries, and I just try as hard as I can to ask for feedback. Hey, did you follow this? Did it work? Where's a gap? What doesn't work, or what step was confusing? And over a year, I think I've done a semi-decent job where I'm answering smaller questions over the course of time. I also put all of our worship ministry school courses that are relevant in here so that they can just click the link, be taking the course. They get up and running with things like ProPresenter and sound and things like that. So that all speaks to my last point here, my last slide. If you've been in the Accelerator program, you might have heard me talk about this, but I think it all boils down to, you can have SOPs, you can have the right ingredients, you can have the right method, but if you aren't a shepherd leader, if you're not a steward of the people in your ministry and you don't care to shepherd them, I don't really know how far you'll get. So this is a phenomenal book. I'll contextualize it real quick. It is written towards elders, so if you're not like a eldership-led church, that's okay. This is written towards elders. I think it's really good on being a leader of any kind. So his 3 main points are to know your people, to feed your people, and to lead your people. He has one last one that's pretty specific to kind of the churches who are eldering and using elders to protect your people. I think that still applies to us, but I just think we deal with it a little bit less than what he's talking about. But if you don't pursue knowing your people in your ministry and knowing the people of your church, you're not going to grow your team. And so, again, that's why I just kind of showed up to every ministry that was happening as much as I could in good conscience, and said, just try to meet people. Learn who was in the church and try to be a consistent face in those environments. You got to feed your people what you know that they need. If a shepherd leads his sheep to a really dry pasture, knowing that his sheep are really malnourished and then they eat really bad grass, they're not going to grow in sustenance. They're not going to grow in their ability to continue to go on the journey with the shepherd. So feed your people what they need to know. If you've got people on your team that are spiritually immature, or they're looking to grow in certain areas of their walk with the Lord and in their discipleship, give them resources, send them books, send them, YouTube videos, send them blogs, call them on the phone, pray with them, give them resources to feed them and their soul. Last one is to lead them, and I always say start with why. I think we've referenced that book here at the conference already, but Start with Why is just a great book and resource for you if you haven't been able to clarify your vision and mission from your church. Start with why so that you can cast that vision in your YouTube or your web page video. You need to be able to clearly articulate the vision of, here's where we're going. Here's where I'd like to take our team. We have one thing that I think is really helpful every year at Storyline. We call it the Leadership Conference. And so we put on a 2-day event like this where we kind of shower our leaders with thanks. We feed them. We do a very nice meal. The whole staff serves the meal, so we put on aprons. We do the whole thing. We seat them. We decorate the whole building, and we really treat them for 2 days where we thank them for serving. We also cast vision for where we're going, and we do breakouts with each ministry to kind of specify that. So lead them. Talk about where you're going. And if you haven't done that, take a half a day or something out of the office, sit at a coffee shop where you can kind of dialogue, journal something about that, or partner with your lead pastor on that, or your worship leader. Talk about what the reason is for your ministry to exist, and then how to kind of take it in a direction that you would think that would edify the church. So mine has been very clear since the start. I saw a lot of ministry environments that needed help, and a lot of ministry environments that didn't have any tech support. And so my vision was, I would love to see our church supported and operated by a team of skilled and equipped tech volunteers that love to serve those particular ministries, that have a heart for student ministry, that have a heart for adult Bible study, that have a heart for adult discipleship, that have a heart for Sunday morning gatherings. I want to see our team have real clear callings to those environments, and then for it to scale so that I'm not the one running around to all these different ministries myself, but that we have called and equipped people in those specific areas. So lead them where you want them to go, communicate it, and then protect them. Obviously, go to bat for them. They're your people. They're your volunteers. So that's my recipe. I have a form, and people will come up. This is my last slide, so I'll wrap up here. I have a form that exists online. It's a planning center form. It's super simple. Phone number, email, background, like what's your experience. Or somebody comes up to me at the tech booth and says, hey, I wanna get plugged in and volunteer. I then do a one-on-one meeting with every single volunteer. It doesn't matter if it's gonna take an hour of my morning. I'm gonna wake up earlier so I can meet them at 7 before they go to work, or we can do a coffee or lunch during the day, and get that appointment. I literally get my phone out, I ask them for their phone number, and I schedule that meeting looking at them face-to-face, so that I'm not reverting to, hey, I'll email you this week. Yeah, I think you just lost that volunteer. But if I respond right then, I grab my phone. Hey, what time would work for you this week? What time would work for you the next 2 weeks? Whatever it might be for you. Get that calendar appointment on your calendar to lock it in and make sure that we're moving quickly, because you want to strike while the iron's hot. I then send them the onboarding material. So I have a couple different things. I'm moving everything to Notion for onboarding. So I have one page that has all the job descriptions. It has the onboarding sequence of events. So you've got the one-on-one, you've got the job descriptions, you've got the follow-up. And so they'll have all the material that's required for them to understand what's going to be expected of them. And then I have the custom onboarding plan where I just send them, hey, I'm going to start scheduling you for the next couple months. And I have what's called a grace period where I'll follow up with them after 6 weeks, ask them how it's going, make sure they will still want to plug in to the team. And that's it. So it's pretty simple. I feel like it's a decent recipe. It's working for me right now, tweaking it all the time. But if you guys want to talk more about it offline, we can. But that is really what I would call my recipe and my method and the case study of what I've experienced at Storyline over the past year. My team now sits at about 40 people across those different environments, and I still go to a lot of stuff. I really don't think I'm needed in a lot of those environments, but I still go to a lot of stuff, and it works well for us. So I hope that's helpful. If you guys want to chat about other pieces of that, I'll be available for questions and things afterwards. But thanks.